Hi, friends. This is Wendy Harrop, and welcome to the Say Yes to Yourself podcast. On the Say Yes to Yourself podcast, you'll hear stories from women just like us who are adding the practice of saying yes in their daily lives in big and small ways, and as a result, are experiencing the truth that everybody wins when you say yes to yourself. Saying yes to yourself is a graceful unfolding, an intentional becoming of the very best version of you. It is my hope that in these conversations, we are able to find our truth and be inspired and empowered to live our very best lives. I'm so excited to go on this journey with you, and I look forward to finding a bit of our own story in each other's. Hey friends, welcome back to the podcast. I think you can hear in my voice that I must be in France. It is true. There is just a sense of goodness that is welling up in my heart and in my body every time I am here. So you may hear some background noise. Jeff and Amelia are outside feeding the barn kittens. I am looking out this glorious window onto this courtyard that is overflowing with beautiful flowers and vines, and I just could not be happier. And here I am sitting with you as well, and about to share a really beautiful conversation that I had with a new friend, Nicole Kalil. She is the founder and Confidence Sherpa of her own beautiful company. Nicole's passion for eliminating gender expectations and redefining women's work is both what keeps her up at night and what gets her up in the morning. Well, that and an abundant amount of coffee, she says. An in-demand speaker, author of Validation is for Parking, leadership strategist, respected coach, and host of This is Women's Work podcast, her stalker-like obsession with confidence sets her apart from the constant stream of experts telling us to be confident. She actually shares how you build it and gives actionable tools you can implement immediately. A fugitive of the C-suite at a Fortune 100 company, she has coached hundreds of women in business, which has given her insight as to what structurally, systematically, and socially is and isn't serving both women and leaders within an organization. Maintaining some semblance of sanity in her different roles of wife, mother, and business owner is an ongoing challenge. In whatever free time she has, she enjoys reading and wine guzzling. As an avid cheese enthusiast, a hotel snob, and a reluctant peloton rider. Okay, as you can gather from that super fun bio, she is also hilarious. She's so wise and funny and engaging and attractive. You are going to definitely want to follow her, listen to her podcast, This is Women's Work, follow her on Instagram. Her stories are hilarious. She's just an absolute delight, and I am thrilled to introduce you to my new friend, Nicole Kalil. Nicole Kalil, I am so excited to see your beautiful face and have this conversation. I'm so grateful to have you here. Thank you in advance.
Oh my gosh, Wendy, I'm so happy to be here. I love nothing more than having authentic, real conversations with women about how we're really doing life and doing all the things. So I'm here for it. Thank you for having me.
Oh, I'm just so glad that we were connected through our mutual person, Gina DeVee.
Oh, I love Gina DeVee.
Yes, I am a super, super fan.
Same.
And ever since I've been listening to your podcast and wondering how in the world did I not know about you? So I'm so excited to also introduce you to my audience. And I would love to start this conversation with the way that I start most of them, in asking you, How are you saying yes to yourself in this season?
So my automatic reaction is that is both a really big and a really small question, right? And it's a really complicated and a really simple one. There's so many ways I'm doing this. I think that we're all doing this, some better than others, some more strategic than others, some more purposeful than others. But very specifically at this time in my life, I think one of the unique ways I'm saying yes to myself is allowing myself space and time to be slow and to consider and to question. I am a type A. My background is in financial services. I worked at a Fortune 100 finance company and was very, very often the only woman in the room at the executive level. And I have a lot of naturally more masculine qualities or tendencies. I'm very decisive. I'm a direct communicator. There's just a lot of things. All of that to say, I have said yes to myself in the past in very different ways that I'm saying yes to myself today. I launched my book last year and I sort of lost myself in it. I hit extreme burnout. I, went for all of the tactics and all of the things because I wanted to live with no regrets. I had this big thing of like, I don't want to look back on my book launch and think I should have done something more. I should have done something differently. And in looking at it that way, I think I pushed too hard, too far, too fast, and wasn't asking myself the questions, what do I need right now? What is my body telling me? What is my energy telling me? And so at the end of 2022, I basically canceled everything I could. And I spent the better part of this year in space, in slowness, in discovery, in questioning, in asking. And anybody who says that's not a hard thing to do has never done it or isn't wired like me because that was exceptionally hard. And so this has been a unique period in my life where I haven't been exceptionally motivated or driven or clear or purposeful or tenacious. And it has been so necessary and really cool and has led me in totally different directions. And even when I start getting excited about something, I'm kind of consciously forcing myself to go slowly, which is not my normal mode of operation. So Wendy, that is a very long-winded answer to your question of how I'm saying yes to myself right now, but it's just different than how it normally is. And it's been fun being curious and slow.
Wow. Okay. That is such a generous answer. Thank you so much. I have 32 questions.
Bring them on.
As a result, but I feel like they all are how are you even doing that in a culture where your tenacity and decisiveness and action were not only expected, but a requirement? You've recognized them as clearly a superpower, which sometimes we find are also our kryptonite. So how do you, sometimes it's like our bodies physically say, if you're not listening to me, I am no longer available to be of service to you until, so I'm just going to lie down over here until you decide to catch up with me. So I'm hoping that it wasn't something as drastic as that, although, God bless you if it was. But how are you specifically changing the pattern that has actually served you until it wasn't?
Sure. So there are a lot of answers to that question. The first is I need to up front acknowledge the privilege I have in being able to make a choice like this, at least from a space of I haven't once been worried about being able to pay my mortgage or feed my family or, so I've created a very financially secure life. I have a very engaged and supportive partner. I've surrounded myself with really good people. And so as hard as it was for me, it was mostly in my own mind. The person I had to battle with, or the situation I needed to battle with in making this choice was me. And again, I want to acknowledge the privilege I have to be in that situation, because that might be a much different or harder choice for other people.
For sure. Thank you for that.
I also want to say that there was an element of necessity to it. I didn't quite hit physical or mental or emotional burnout. It wasn't like I had no other option. And I was very aware in key moments that I wasn't in my body. I wasn't experiencing my experience. I had gone numb. I was putting one foot in front of the other. I was, following up my commitments versus paying any attention to my feelings or intuition or what my inner knowing was telling me. So the best example I can think of is my book launch event. I had friends fly in from all over the country. My family was here. We had over 100 people show up. The bookstore, we did it as the oldest bookstore in America, Andover Bookstore, which is the town I live in. And they couldn't have been any more generous and lovely and wonderful. And I was numb through the entire experience. Like I just was, doing what I had to do because I had no energy left and there was nothing left in the tank. And there's so many things I can say about that, but there was a necessary component of this. There was an awareness of, if I keep moving forward in this way, I'm headed towards some, necessary self-care or emergency self-care or mental breakdown or something like that.
Right. A hospital stay is in
exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Another answer to the question how is I've gotten a lot better at asking for help. I recognize this isn't my normal pattern. This isn't my normal way of doing things. I don't know how to execute in this way as well as I do, strategy, follow through, tenacity, that kind of thing. And so surrounding myself with different people, I've worked with a different coach. I've reached out to have different conversations with people who are, either experts or practice mindfulness, meditation. I'm in this learning phase of what does it even mean to be slow? How do I do this? And acknowledging that I didn't have the first sweet clue where to start or what that looked like. So those are the obvious answers. I think there are probably other hows, but I keep reminding myself to be where my feet are, and to not get too far ahead or too far behind. I think we have a tendency to, live in the past or live in the future. And I'm just really trying right now to be present. And there are a handful of other mantras. The easiest one, as I call the inner critic that lives inside of all of our minds, I call it head trash, because I want it to sound as dirty and disgusting as it actually is. So when my head trash starts kicking up, I've just like gentle. I just remind myself to be gentle with myself the way I would anyone else I love in this stage of life. So lots of mantras and affirmations and quotes and things are surrounding me.
Yes.
But those, yeah. Does that answer your question?
Oh my gosh. Yes. And so beautifully. And I applaud you because it is not, like you said, it's simple, but it's not easy. Doing this takes such intention. And I really want to honor that you are doing that for you and for your beautiful family, and that you are so generously sharing the experiences so that, your goal is to be in service of other people, not for, you certainly don't want anyone feeling sorry for you. Like that's not in your
Oh
wheelhouse
gosh, no.
at all, right?
And let's be honest, there's not that much to feel sorry for. I have an amazing life that I'm so incredibly grateful and proud of. And this is just a stage of it. And I don't want to contribute or perpetuate this myth that I think is out there, that there are these people who have it all figured out and everything's sunshine and rainbows and they've gotten past the hard stuff. And that's not my experience for sure, nor is it any of the experience of any woman that I've worked with. And I work predominantly with uber successful executive level entrepreneur, independent women, and none of us have it all figured out.
For sure. And, I think that's brought up something that's reminding me, any of the women that I've maybe had the thought like, wow, like they've figured it out. Nothing that they ever said or did, they never used any of those words. They never said, hey, look at me in my perfect life. Look at me and my perfect husband and 2.5 children, like all of those things. It's a story that I created about them and then held them accountable to support my narrative. So when something happens and I hope I don't do this anymore. Like we're all evolving. In the past, I've done this. And then when they do something that is very human, my narrative is no longer supportive. So now I feel cheated by this person who's completely fake in my estimation, because they didn't live up to the story that I created about them, and I don't even actually know them. So I'm pretty sure I'm not the only person that has ever done that.
Oh my God, absolutely not. Incredibly well said. And isn't that the truth? We all do this. And in addition, I'll also blame social media a little bit.
Exactly.
Because I do think that if you ever spent any individual or connected time with any of the people on social media that, might be displaying a more perfect life, or at the very least, putting out their highlight moments and not everything else, I don't think you would get that message individually, but on social media, I do think some people are contributing to this perception that, their life is perfect, or they're perfect, or they have it all figured out. And that's one of my biggest beefs with social media. It's not only that it's not real in a lot of cases, it's also that it's manufactured.
Right. And did you make a personal decision about social media? Because
Yeah.
I only recently found out about you, but then when I went to your feed, there was nothing past December.
Yep.
So can you say more about that?
Absolutely. So as of December, I am off of social media as it relates to being a business strategy or something I'm doing to promote my brand or my work in any sense of the word. This was a very conscious and sort of drawn out decision. I've been active on social media, let's say, for about 5 years. The first 4.5, I sucked at it. I did everything I was supposed to do, right? I did the courses, I did the call to actions, I did relevant and engaging content. Pictures and blah, blah, blah. I did all of the stuff, and I found it to be mostly frustrating, discouraging, disheartening to put all of that out there and get mixed engagement. Like some posts, especially if they were more personal in nature, sure, people would like and comment. And then, anything that hinted at self-promotion or achievement, it was like crickets. And I couldn't figure out that. Plus, doing all of this work to get an extra few hundred followers in a year, just the amount of money and time and energy and effort that's being put in, it stopped making any sort of sense to me. Sure. But I had this personal belief that the reason I hated social media was because I wasn't any good at it, because I wasn't getting the results. The results junkie in me was not getting fed, and that's why I hated it. And so I've been fortunate to be connected with a few incredible people who have amazing results on social media, like our friend Gina DeVee and a couple others. And one of those women introduced me to her social media team. So she uses a company that, does this for a large handful of people. And I ended up investing over $60,000 in a 7-month period related to leading up to my book launch. Again, under that, like, I don't want to regret anything. And I invested all this money and time and energy to uncover and discover that I still hated social media. It's just not for me. I say this as, confidence doesn't live on social media, at least not for me. And my work is in the space of confidence. And I know how easy it is to fall into the comparison trap and the judgment trap the second you find yourself on social media. And it honestly wasn't getting even the business results to warrant the investment of time and money that I was making. And so I made the decision as of December to step off of social media. Now, if you follow me, you'll notice I still post funny memes and stories and lots of cursing, because that's just what makes me giggle. But outside of that, I'm just not. And the second reason I go on a few times a week strategically to support the women that I know that are out there putting incredible work out into the world that don't yet have the engagement that they deserve. I have this sort of belief that there are a few people, and my work is predominantly focused on women. So if I keep saying that over and over, forgive me if you have a mixed gender audience.
I don't believe that I do.
Okay.
I have a really dear friend named Oswald, and I think my brother listens. And
oh my gosh.
Everybody else, I think, are women.
So for you women and few good men who are tuning in, what I've found is we tend to celebrate the 0.001% of women. And there's nothing wrong with those women. I'm not by any means taking away anything from their work, but it's not that difficult to, encourage Brene Brown or Glennon Doyle or, Jenna Kutcher or whatever. They're getting the engagement that they deserve, but there are so many women out there who are doing exceptional work, like you, like so many, that it's this weird phenomenon. It's almost like your followers and your friends won't support you until strangers start celebrating you. And so my goal is to go in and like and comment on as many of those women's stuff when I do get on social media, just to do my part in being a woman who supports women publicly, because that's so important to me.
I really appreciate that. And I, again, applaud your decision. Have you noticed, did you go out of business because you got off social, and everything dwindled and now you're so sad and full of regret?
So never once, not for 1 second, have I regretted the decision. It was a personal decision, so I can't say that other people would feel that way, but I have not looked back even once. But there is some irony to that, in that one of the things that has come out of this was an idea I had about a year ago when I was working with a social media company, that I just was like, I'm not going to do this. It's so off brand for me. And we flash forward a year later. One of the things that I'm doing is creating some social media support groups, is what I'm calling it, because it feels like you need a support group when you're on social media to share forward the learnings and the tips and the tricks that are actually working. I feel like my experience pulled back the veil. I got to see behind the curtain, and so much of what works on social media is not what we're being told. And so I want to pass forward that messaging and do my part in getting that engagement for those women. So oddly enough, I'm not on social media yet. One of the offerings I provide my clients is a social media support group. Outside of that, I have seen my income go down this year, but I think that has nothing to do with social media and everything to do with the fact that I stopped doing any sort of outreach or, attempting, and I didn't even have business goals coming into 2023. I think this is more to do with my conscious choice to go slow and be still and take care of myself, in the first part of this year. So no, I haven't missed it. I don't feel I've lost anything. I think I've gained more, but I will tell you that the success I was able to achieve, so maybe more of a data point. When I started working with a social media team, I had about 3,500 followers. And I, as I said, I spent 4.5 years doing everything I could to get those 3,500, and they were really engaged followers. When I ended 7 months later working with the social media group, I had just under 40,000 followers at the time. And now I'm at around 70-ish thousand followers. So I don't know how, well, I have some ideas of how a lot of it has been being a guest on so many incredible, amazing podcasts like this one. I've actually seen an increase in social media followers, even though I'm doing nothing.
Right. I think you actually have 85,000 followers.
Yikes. I'm interesting.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah. What I will say that, at least for me, what social media has boiled down to for me for business purposes, I think that there are personal purposes like connection, staying in touch. There's so many wonderful things about that. But on the business side, for me, it's about getting the engagement you deserve. So you get the credibility you already have, but other people can buy into, so that you have more opportunity to impact in the way that you can. So that's the connection for me. So for me, it goes back to getting the likes and the comments. So other people, your followers, your network, other people look and go, oh my gosh, people are really interested in what she's saying. That must mean that it's valuable. And then they engage themselves, and you get that increased credibility and that increased impact. So let me just say one more thing. I'm a speaker. That's what I do for the bulk of my work. And if you were an event coordinator looking to hire a speaker for your event, you would look at several different speakers, and you might have to decide between speakers of the same topic. One person might have 3,000 followers, one person might have 30,000, and the other might have 300. You're more likely to pick the person with 300,000 followers because subconsciously the messages have been sent. The more people are engaged and interested in what that person has to say. I freaking hate that that's the truth.
Agreed.
But it is the truth. And so that's really my learnings about social media, and doesn't change the fact that I still have no regrets about being off it.
Right. And thank you for saying that. And I want to clarify my amazing comment to your followers. What I mean is amazing that it's doubled in size since you got off.
Yeah. Isn't that wild?
It is wild and comical and beautiful in the opportunity for realization of like what this beast is and what it does. And I think that with anything, I think we find what we're looking for. Mm-hmm. And if we say, today is going to be awful, guess what? You're most likely going to have an awful day. And if you're going to wake up and just be so grateful for a beautiful day, then that's probably what you're going to have. You just are setting yourself up. And so I've loved my time on social because I am in the process of leaving a 22-year marriage that didn't offer the same level of connection and acknowledgement and appreciation that my sweet Instagram community provides for me. And so in that, like, I'm having a great time, and I feel like it is in service to me and what I'm doing because I feel good doing it. And when it if I take a course or I hear somebody's workshop and they say, oh, well, what you're supposed to do are these carousel things and these real things, and you have to sync your words to somebody. I was like, oh gosh, okay, I don't
Yeah.
I only know what I know how to do until I know better. I'll do better, but I really don't. You've been here, so you know I have this small farm. I really don't need anything else bossing me around about how I'm supposed to use my time in a different way.
Yeah. And I love that for you. I am thrilled to connect with somebody who is feeling fulfilled and excited about their time on social media. I genuinely want more of that for people. And I think at least part of the reason, and I could be making this up, but I think this is what I hear you saying, is you're there for a organic and authentic reason. You're not there looking for external validation from other people. You're not trying to outsource your confidence in the form of likes and follows and things like that. And frankly, far too many of us, especially women, are falling into that trap when we go on social media. We're determining whether or not we have value or what we have to say has value or our offerings have value based on other people's response and engagement to it. And that's not healthy. And that's the part of social media that I hate. And in full transparency, have fallen into the trap of myself, which is why I probably hate it so much.
Right, right. And so that comment is leading me to ask you a bit about your book, because it sounds like, just based on the title of your book, and I'd love for you to share everything about it that you would like to say, but it seems like that although your book launch is what ushered you into this new beautiful space of your life, it seems like it was also so much what your book must be about. Like, you were just continuing, you know how they say we teach what we need to learn. So you wrote a whole book that then you got to read and implement and create this experience that you've had the last 7 months now.
1000%. That's exactly what happened. And so the book is called Validation is for Parking. The title was chosen for many reasons, but mostly because it's a little snarky like I am. And the subtitle is what tells you what the book is actually about. The subtitle is How Women Can Beat the Confidence Con. And so it's a book written by a woman for women on the topic of how we build, connect to, and keep our confidence throughout our lives. And there are a lot of tactics, there are a lot of concepts, there are a lot of actionable things. And I will tell you, the entire book writing, book publishing, book launching process had me leveraging everything I put in my book at the highest level I ever had. And I can't blame the book for my book launch experience, right? That had more to do with me falling into old patterns and old traps, which I think we do most easily when we're under stress, overwhelmed, feeling pressure. I think when that happens, we sort of default to old patterns, old tendencies, old beliefs. And I certainly did that. And my old pattern, my old tendency is results. It means nothing unless I get the results. And if I commit to a result, then I'm going to run through a brick wall to get it, strategy, all of that. And so, I had a couple goals, Amazon bestseller, selling a certain amount of copies, because to me, that was a way to measure how many women were being given the opportunity to build and connect with their confidence. And so there were things like that. And I just went gung ho, and I sort of forgot that a book lasts forever, right? That it doesn't all have to happen in the first 90 days. It's not like another offering that sort of goes away. But yeah, I probably lived everything that I wrote about at the highest level when I was putting it out there. And I definitely had to deal with my own, and I've not dealt with imposter syndrome much in my life, but at this particular stage of my life, I did. There was this voice in my head that was like, how are you out there talking about confidence? How have you written a book about confidence? How are you telling other people how they can grow and develop their confidence when at this point in time you're numbed out. You're not even remotely connected to yourself or your confidence. You're, saying yes to things you should have been saying no to. You're not listening to yourself. You're not trusting yourself, which is my definition of confidence. Confidence is firm and bold trust in self. Any other version is something confidence adjacent. And so that was a really interesting, like, oh, I feel like a fraud. Oh, I feel like, people are going to be judging me for having this book out, so it was just a really interesting experience. I'm happy to share anything about the book writing or book launching process or anything in the book. But
I just want to acknowledge that your head trash is a bitch.
Yeah, always.
Like, she's not nice at all.
Yeah. So I always say perfectionism is the enemy of confidence. Head trash is the bully of confidence.
For sure.
And comparison is the thief of confidence. There's
right?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay. I do want to ask about the book, but I have a question about this 7 months, because now we're 7 months into the new year, into this experiment that you're of slow. So much of what I've experienced in my life that really brought true transformation and lasting evolution in my life has really been associated with a pattern interrupt. And whether that is just going away for a day, or going for a walk instead of mowing the lawn, or going to France for a month with Amelia, like I'm about to in a week and a half. And I'm encouraging my listeners to do that as well, whatever that is. Get into a course, read a book, just change something up even in your morning routine, but just this pattern interrupt where we are off just enough to really be intentional, ask ourselves some questions. How do I feel about this? What do I even want? Instead of answering that with how we answered it 20 years ago, like, what do I really want today? So how has this giant pattern interrupt been for you? Like, are there some pillars that you've really seen erect themselves as you redefine who you are?
Absolutely. So yes, I couldn't co-sign a pattern interrupt any more strongly than I do today after having done basically a 7-month version of it. I think the things that have come out for me is, first, I believe action builds confidence. I don't think we wish or hope or think our way into it. We take action and that's when confidence gets built.
Yes.
But
Tina says freedom is a decision away.
Exactly. Yep. And my pattern started defaulting a little bit towards action for the sake of action. And so one of the big things that came out of this pattern interrupt for me is action towards what matters.
Ooh.
Distinguishing between action for the sake of action, doing for the sake of doing, versus I'm taking action towards what matters most. And not. The other thing when I say not is that understanding that inaction is also an action, at least it is for me. And so stopping myself from getting into action for action's sake, or saying yes to things that weren't yeses. They might've been maybes or nos or not nows, but saying no when it wasn't a clear or true yes for me. Those are some things that came out. I also, it was funny, I was actually talking to Gina DeVee yesterday, and I said to her, I'm motivated for the first time in a long time, but I'm still not clear. And so that's kind of, this recognizing where I'm actually at, as opposed to, I think the messaging we constantly get is that we're supposed to be motivated all the time, and we're supposed to be clear all the time. And we're supposed to, have business goals that we execute on without fail and every day and all of that. And so, allowing myself to be in the messy middle and really checking in with, where am I? What is clear? What is not clear? And just making decisions based on that. And then finally, it's become evident to me that I am motivated predominantly by two things. And so every business or work decision has been sort of running through this filter. The first motivator for me is being a woman who supports other women publicly. Yes, I want to do it privately and personally and all of that, but I think the missing link is publicly. I want to be in service of other women who are up to really big things. And so, I wouldn't say that was unclear to me before, but that's just become crystal clear. The second primary motivator is not so beautiful. And I wish this weren't totally the case, but it really is. I'm motivated predominantly by being pissed off.
Anger is where justice is born.
I just, when something infuriates me to the point where it's like, I can't help but do something about it. So like, I'm really paying attention to where those things are coming into combination, and I'm letting it be okay that those are my motivators, as opposed to trying to come up with something better or sounds better to other people.
I think that is beautiful. How many people don't feel anything? So feeling something is yes.
Yeah.
Please feel something and then do something about it that is intentional, that is thought out, that is healthy and in service. And you are doing this gorgeous work of pausing so that you can take action toward your anger in a healthy way that will have impact. You mentioned inaction, and for you, I just want to recognize and honor and acknowledge that is hard for a person with your skill set. Like, you're really good at taking action. So to pause, to choose to pause, to not take action, although, it sounds easier for anyone listening who prefers to just complain about what they don't have instead of go do something about that. Like, oh, when I'm doing like Nicole, I'm not taking any action, but you are, you're doing the thing that is in service to the thing that you want.
Yeah. And I think there's an important distinction to make there. So I'm so glad that you brought that up. I'm not advocating for inaction's sake either. I think it's important to distinguish between when something feels uncomfortable or when something feels wrong. I do not do things that feel wrong. Like, that, like that feeling in your body, like that gut instinct or whatever you want to call it, where that like if I'm in a dark alley and something in my body says run, I'm freaking running, right? If something feels wrong, physically, mentally, or emotionally, that is not what I'm talking about here. When something feels uncomfortable, when it feels risky, or, it starts popping up fear or doubt or whatever, that's usually my best messaging to know that's exactly where I need to go. And so for me, inaction, stillness, quiet, listening, pausing, creating space, all those things were the most uncomfortable, the most fear-inducing, doubt-laden things that I could have been doing. Like, my body was like, how can you get off of social media right now when you're on this huge upward trajectory and things are starting to work and, blah. How can you stop reaching out for clients? What are you doing? You're going to ruin everything. Like, all the noise and that's why I knew that's what I needed to do. It was discomfort. And I find the more often I'm willing to lean into discomfort, again, not something that feels wrong or bad, but like, oh God, this is the scariest thing I could be doing right now, then that's exactly what I need to be doing. That's why they call it being brave. If you weren't scared, you wouldn't need to be brave. It doesn't require any courage for me to walk outside and get my mail from my mailbox. Why? Because it's not uncomfortable for me.
Oh, that's so interesting, because that's super uncomfortable for me.
Oh, is it? Okay. So
my situation with my neighbor. So it's just fascinating that you said that. Right?
No, but and we all have our different things, because that's actually an excellent point. For a lot of people, for a lot of reasons, that would be a very uncomfortable or scary or fear or doubt inducing. And again, you have to check in. Is this because it's wrong? Like I can't go to my mailbox because I'm physically unsafe. Well, then you should listen to that, right? But if there is something that's just uncomfortable and it's all happening mostly in your mind, right? And you know the difference, then that's for me where I try to get better at leaning into that faster and using that as a gauge of, okay, well, that's where I got to go because that's where I would go if I were being brave, if I were being courageous. And
right?
that's usually a good choice.
Yes, yes. And I love even that popped into my head because there are times, and there have been times in the past where it just was not wise for me to get my mail. Like that, just not a smart move. And then it shifted. It shifted from wrong to uncomfortable. And like you said, like that became I don't want to say trigger because usually trigger is the word that makes us go the different direction, but that became the set point of, okay, like I need to make a decision. Freedom is a decision away. I have every right to get my mail, to be on my own driveway, to take up space, to not give my power away, to require appropriate behavior, to expect appropriate behavior, I think it's okay to be surprised by bad behavior, even if it's every single day. Like, I still want that to surprise me. I like that about me, that I'm surprised. So,
amen.
Right?
Yeah.
So I think it's that those are such great feelings to be mindful of, because there is awareness, there's embodiment, we're paying attention to what's going on, and we can also recognize when it does shift. Speaking of Gina, she's helping me do some things that I don't want to do. That's what she does. She's so good at it.
She's so good at it. Yeah.
She's a little bit scary in the fact that she's not going to forget that she told you to do it, but her motivation is my success. So it makes me less afraid to do the hard thing. But thing that I love about her is she just calls me out and she's like, you're in avoidance about this. And I say, oh, I know, I got to do it. So I'm doing this task over the weekend because she's given me till Monday to do it. Right. And when therapists and people that know things talk about witnessing the different parts of yourself and loving all the parts of yourself and inviting them all for tea and all those things. I was witnessing my avoidance like I was having an out-of-body experience. I sat down at my desk to do the thing, and then I'm thirsty. I'm going to go downstairs and get some water. A cup of tea. I'm gonna have that loose leaf tea because it takes longer. I was like, what is wrong with you?
Yeah. Well, isn't it crazy that once you see it, you can't unsee it? You're like, oh crap.
And it's comical.
Yeah.
If it was not raining, I would have mowed the lawn. I admittedly watched 2 episodes of Jack Ryan. Like, I don't even watch TV, and like, I'm way more Emily in Paris than I am Jack Ryan. So
right.
Like, it was so blatant and clear. And so I just think it's funny that sometimes we think that we're so tricky and we think that other people don't understand our circumstance and that's why we can't do the hard thing. And it's just as obvious as a teenager lying to you.
Well, it's interesting that you bring that up. I have a quote that I use a lot in coaching, and it goes like this. It says, it's hard to read the label when you're inside the bottle. And I feel like that's so true for all of us. When we're in it, when it's our stuff, it's so hard to see things clearly. It's much easier to see something clearly on somebody else's behalf. Now, that doesn't mean anybody who sees anything about you is right. You have to be mindful who you trust and who you share information with or whatever. But to me, that's always the value of coaching. It's somebody that I trust who is looking from outside the bottle and can see things clearer and faster and help me get to where I can read the label too, because when you're in it, it is so confusing and so hard and so messy. So,
Oh, that's so helpful. Thank you.
yeah.
Oh my gosh, I will. I'm going to add that to my sticky note array of mantras and affirmations, like you mentioned you have for you. This has been amazing. I could clearly talk to you all day, and I'm so happy that we've connected and that we're close to each other geographically as well.
Yes, I know.
It's
And your
so
beautiful
fun.
farm. Oh my gosh.
Thank
So
you.
I went with, for those of you listening, I went with my daughter, JJ, who's about to be 10. And when we were driving away, she goes, Mom, I think we should live on a farm. Now, mind you, we just renovated our entire house. I was like, we're not moving, but I'm kind of with you. That was just a beautiful and lovely experience. So thank you for
Oh,
having me today and for that wonderful experience.
oh my gosh. And you must come back because JJ and Amelia will
Yes.
be fast friends like we were.
Yeah.
Before I let you go, please tell everyone listening how they can get your book, where they can find and follow you, where they can follow you on the social media that you are not necessarily in, but yet your numbers are growing daily, which is so fabulous, for all the reasons that you said, because it does give street cred to someone who is booking you, and your message is beautiful and needed, and it's inspirational and transformational, and it needs to hit as many ears as possible. So whatever numbers we need to make so that that happens more, I am totally here for it.
Well, thank you, Wendy. And thank you, you who are listening in on this conversation. If you do want to find me, my website is NicoleKalil.com. That's where you can find all the stuff. If you do want to follow me on social media, Instagram is your best bet at Nicole M. Kalil. You're not going to see me in your feed, but you will find me in stories with funny memes with lots of cursing. So if you don't like cursing, don't follow me. Outside of that, the book is Validation is for Parking. Easiest way is to order it on Amazon, but my preference, if I could ask, is if you go to your local bookstore and ask them to order it for you. We want to keep local bookstores in business. And I think that's probably the most and best ways to find me.
Perfect. And we will link all of that in the show notes. But thank you so much for your time. You are a treasure, and I loved this conversation.
Right back at you, Wendy. Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed that conversation as much as I did. As always, any links or notes mentioned can be found at phineaswrighthouse.com in the podcast section of our site, or in the show notes below. And if you haven't connected with me personally, come find me on Instagram at Phineas Wrighthouse and let me know you listened to this episode. I'd love to get to know you. Thank you for sharing this time with me. I know your days are full, and I'm really grateful that you chose to spend some of your precious time right here. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss any of these delightful conversations. I'll see you next week.